Looking for the right turn, make all the change you make. If you really want right, just hold on tight and I'll take you to the place to be. Do you know what today is? It's our hidden history. Our hidden history. Do you know what today is? Our hidden history. Everything don't check. Time running is a maze. All the things you can learn in short space, but the time's still running, don't let it waste. Yeah, you can learn with me, cause when I'm reading, oh, it's so amazing, so amazing. I flip the page, I see you written down again and again. I'm humble and I'm hearkening, that if you will today, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, follow me, yeah, follow me, yeah, to the Sabbath day. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Friday, yeah, to the Sabbath day. Then we go and keep it holy and make it to the next day. Do you know what today is? It's our hidden history. Do you really wanna know? Well, I really wanna know, yeah. Cause there's a place so amazing with all the things I really wanna know, yeah. I'm driving all night, looking for the right turn, make all the change you make. If you really want right, just hold on tight and I'll take you to the place to be. Do you know what today is? It's our hidden history. Our hidden history. Do you know what today is? Our hidden history. Do you know what today is? Our hidden history. Everything don't check. Time running is a maze. All the things you can learn in short space, but the time's still running, don't let it waste. Yeah, you can learn with me, cause when I'm reading, oh, it's so amazing, so amazing. I flip the page, I see you written down again and again. I'm humble and I'm hearkening, that if you
Hey, shalom, shalom. Welcome back to Our Hidden History. All right, you're now tuned into
Our Hidden History radio show.
All right, we started a little late, a little later than usual. So we're gonna just get right into it. All right. So what we going over last week? We went over the we dealt with nervous disorders and so forth with Christ, the things that Christ was doing in his ministry, how he was expelling demons out of our people and the miracles that he was doing, the healings and so forth. So I just wanted to do a little segment on that. And all praises last night, Bishop went further deeper into it last night. So let's give a hand for Bishop class last night. Heavy class. All right. So let you know the spirits that that we have dormant inside of us, and that what we need to work on. How we need to examine ourselves, all right, in this truth. So all praises for that thing. All right. Those one of those classes that we all need. I know you want the prophecies, the deep breakdowns and everything, but those type of classes is what we really need right there. How to deal with your spirit, how to deal with the battles that we're going through. Okay. So also last week I dealt with Christ, and I think we're still dealing with the rise of Tiberius. Now, this week we're gonna switch things up. Now we're getting into the fourth Caesar, which was Caligula. All right. So remember, we had Julius Caesar, which was the first Caesar. Then we dealt with Augustus, which was the longest reigning Caesar. We proved that according to 2nd Esdras, chapter 12. All right, who was part of the 12 feathers, the longest reigning Caesar of the 12 feathers. The third Caesar we dealt with was Tiberius. Tiberius was the Caesar of Christ's ministry. All right, the Caesar of Christ's ministry. Now we are on the fourth, Caligula. So I don't want y'all to forget how the episodes is going. What we're doing is that we're doing Roman captivity, which we call it the Echoes of Rome. What we're doing is following the 12 feathers, the 12 Caesars of Rome, and the life that we lived under those Caesars. Okay, the life that we lived under those Caesars. All right. So now let's get into Caligula real quick. Give me the first book. Caesar and Christ, page 267. So we're just gonna go over who Caligula was and the things that he did concerning us, the Jews. You can start to raise
funds for his lifelong Saturnalia. Caligula restored the custom of presenting gifts to the emperor. He accepted these in person.
So remember, a couple classes back, we did Saturnalia is pretty much Christmas. That's what Saturnalia was. They called it Romans call it Saturnalia, but it's pretty much Christmas. That's why he said, presenting gifts, the custom of presenting gifts, because that was Christmas time, around December 25th. All right, go ahead.
He accepted these in person on his palace terrace from all who came to give. He encouraged citizens to name him heir in their wills. He levied taxes upon...
So wait a minute. So listen, all the Caesars was crazy as hell. They keep getting worse as we go on. You understand? They keep getting worse. Now this particular emperor was a maniac. He was a straight lunatic. All right? So what he was doing was he encouraged citizens to name him heir in their wills. In their wills. So the wills that you were writing, he wanted you to name him the heir in your own personal will. Go ahead.
He levied taxes upon everything.
So levy taxes meaning he raised taxes upon everything. Go ahead. And inflations, sort of like today. Go ahead.
A sales tax on all food.
On what?
All food.
Go ahead.
A tax on all legal processes. A 12.5% tax on the wages of porters.
Read.
On the earnings of prostitutes. Suetonius avers he laid a tax of as much as each received for one embrace. And the law provided that those who had ever been prostitutes should remain subject to this tax even after they married.
So the prostitutes had to pay taxes. Go ahead.
He had rich men accused of treason and condemned them to death as an aid to the treasury. He personally auctioned off gladiators and slaves.
So listen, he had rich men accused of treason. Not to say that they were guilty of treason. He had them accused of it so he could put them to death. Go ahead. Because why? At that, one of the Roman laws at that time was treason was punishable.
Capital punishment.
Capital punishment. All right. That's what they got Christ for. Treason. Go ahead.
He personally auctioned off gladiators and slaves and forced aristocrats to attend and bid. When one of these slept, Caligula interpreted his nods as bids.
Read.
So that the sleeper waking, found himself richer by 13 gladiators and poorer by 9 million sesterces.
Hey, look up sesterces. I don't know. Probably a million. I don't know. Sesterces. Hey, if it's hard for you to spell, don't even worry about it.
It's on that book. You should be able to read it.
But I forgot what Bishop asked him to spell a week ago. It's something simple. Go ahead. Y'all got it? Sesterces.
Sesterces, an ancient Roman coin and monetary unit equal to 1/4 of a denarius.
Okay, so that sesterces is one of their it's their currency. All right, the currency is a coin. Go ahead. Go back. So probably like $9 million.
He compelled senators and knights to fight as gladiators in the arena.
So the word compel means forced. He forced senators, the senators that was watching that was in the Roman, in the like the government. Sorry, the government. He was forcing them. Thank you. He was forcing them to fight as gladiators. The Roman government. He forced them to fight as gladiators and the knights also. Go ahead.
After 3 years, a conspiracy was formed to end this humiliating buffoonery. Caligula detected it and revenged himself by a reign of terror enhanced by his maniac joy in inflicting pain.
He was a lunatic. Read on.
The executioners were instructed to kill his victims by numerous slight wounds so that they may feel that they are dying.
Damn.
I did the math on the
ahead.
the gladiators cost. So a sesterce is 50 cents. So it's $4.5 million for 13 gladiators, meaning each gladiator costs $346,000.
Damn. Okay. All right. All praises. So that's what that meant when it said 9 million sesterces. All right. So all praises. Go back to where he inflicted pain.
The executioners were instructed to kill his victims by numerous slight wounds.
So he instructed the victims to be killed by numerous slight wounds. Go ahead.
So that they may feel that they are dying.
So that they could feel. So they died a slow death. They died a slow death. So it was a torture. Go ahead.
If we may believe Dio Cassius, he forced his saintly grandmother Antonia to kill herself.
Damn, he even told his own grandmother to kill herself. He forced her to kill herself. Go ahead.
Suetonius recounts that when meat ran short for feeding, the beasts kept for gladiatorial games, Caligula ordered all bald-headed prisoners to be fed to the animals for the public good.
Wait, read that again.
Damn.
Read that again. If you was bald-headed.
Sorry, I also made that.
Read it again.
Suetonius recounts that when meat ran short for feeding the beasts.
So listen, when meat ran short for feeding the lions and the tigers and the beasts that we had to fight against in the gladiatorial games, go ahead.
Caligula ordered all bald-headed prisoners to be fed to the animals for the public good.
And guess what? Them bald-headed prisoners, guess who that was? That was us. That was most likely us being fed to the lions and so forth, being fed to the animals. All right. So he said those bald-headed prisoners. Go ahead.
That he had men of high rank branded with irons, condemned to mines, thrown to beasts, or shut up in cages and then sawn in two.
So I'm just going over how these Caesars that we've been touching on, how they get crazier and crazier as we go on. They were straight up demons, man. Demons. Go ahead.
These are stories that we have no means of disproving and must record as the tradition. But Suetonius loved gossip.
All right, stop. You go get to next page. Next page.
Caligula's final pleasantry was to announce himself as a god.
So now a lot of the emperors, their thing was to announce themselves as a god. Now when you see like a lot of the months and so forth, you see a lot of them have put their names there. Why? Because they thought of themselves as gods. And they got this thing from the pharaohs. Let's go all the way back to the pharaohs, because the pharaohs lifted themselves up as gods. They called themselves god kings. All right. So guess what? The Romans, they were doing the same thing. All right. Lifting themselves up as god kings, right? Seeing themselves as God. Read on.
equal to Jupiter himself.
So he thought he was equal to their god, Jupiter. All right, go ahead.
Famous statues of Jove and other deities were decapitated and crowned with heads of the emperor. He enjoyed sitting on a throne in the temple of Castor and Pollux and receiving divine worship.
Read.
At times, he would converse with an image of Jupiter, often in terms of reproof.
So he was talking to Jupiter. Jupiter can't talk back to him, but he was pretty much talking to himself, reproving himself. Go ahead.
And he had a contrivance made by which he could reply to Jove's thunder and lightning, peal for peal and stroke for stroke.
This dude was crazy. Read.
He set up a temple to his godhead with a core of priests and a supply of select victims. And he appointed his favorite horses as one of his priests, one of the priests.
So one of his horse became his priest. Go ahead.
He pretended that the moon goddess had come down to embrace him, and asked Vitellius, could he not see her? No.
All right, you could drop all that.
Yo, that dude was so crazy, man. He went to bed with his horse.
Damn. That was the priest. That was the priest. He slept with the priest.
Crazy, man.
Our people are like that though. They talk into images.
Yeah.
They have
That's what the Catholic Church is.
They get all that craziness. That
Statues.
sound like Catholicism today, or Christianity.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Same exact thing.
That's what I call a Roman Catholic Church.
Well, then leadership showed a sister. She married herself,
Yeah.
talking to herself. She had a mirror or something like that.
Yeah.
In Mexico, I think a mayor married an alligator.
Yep,
Oh, yeah,
I've seen that.
Damn, he picked the alligator, huh?
Yep. It's a tradition over there. You like the tough skin.
Hey, give me the next page. Issachar. Shout out to Issachar.
The alligator definitely going to give him a good head.
Oh shit.
Chop his head off.
Oh, shoot. Yo, all right, give me the.
I thought that was going somewhere else. But
Yeah, all
praise.
praises. All praises.
Hey, listen, man. You married the alligator, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, so, you
I
know.
was like, wait, what is
No, right. We see how it played out.
Yeah. You brought it back home. All praise.
All right, give me the next page. Give me History of the Jews by Grazel, page 148.
Nothing but love, man. You're an alligator, man.
Hey, but to show you how crazy Esau is, man, profane fornicators, man. They are perverse, profane fornicators. Hey, give me that scripture real quick. Hebrews 12.
That's the thing, man. All people following after this.
Right.
Some of these people.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 12 and verse 16.
Hey, Master doing it. It must be okay. Read.
Lest there be any fornicator or profane person, as Esau.
As who?
As Esau.
The Romans. As the Romans. They were the Edomites at that time. As any, read it from the top again.
Lest there be any fornicator.
Lest there be any fornicators. Esau is a profane fornicator, man. We've touched on it. We've been touching on it about the sexual immorality, they fornication with kids. Yeah. What else? Now we talking about sleeping with animals. They do, bestiality, all that. Esau gets into that type of activity, man. All right, read on.
Or profane person.
Or profane person. Go ahead.
As Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright.
Right.
For ye know.
So he sold his birthright for a piece of meat, piece of red meat. Wasn't even done. All right. So they are profane fornicators, man. Like also Laquap is bringing out, he slept with his horse. He slept with his horse. I think, what's his name? Alexander the Freak. And then he caught syphilis or something. I think he was sleeping around. Well, he was a homosexual.
With boys.
He was a
He was
homosexual.
sleeping with anything.
Yeah, he sleep with anything. I think animals was involved in that too.
Damn.
All right. Profane fornicators. All right. Give me History of the Jews, Grazel, page 148. So we just getting some more on Caligula, who he was. Now we're going to start to get into how he was dealing with us, how he dealt with us now. All right. Give me, y'all got the page? All right. Page 148 to 149.
Hey, this guy was so crazy. That's why he got assassinated. they were so fed up with all these rules that he was pushing on his own people when they said it.
Right,
And
right.
The soldier assassinated him.
I mean, come on now. He forcing the Senate to fight as gladiators.
Bro, that's crazy.
You must know you're gonna die soon. They like, yo, we gotta get rid of this guy. All right, read that.
Start at the top.
No. At the
6.
riots in Alexandria.
Yes, sir. Riots in Alexandria.
Jump. Yeah, read on. Go ahead.
Villainy and prejudice. In view of what has been said about the competition between Jews and pagans and between Judaism and paganism, it need cause no surprise that in time riots started against the Jews. A few demagogues.
So riots was starting to be a thing amongst us. Go ahead.
A few demagogues succeeded eventually in stirring up the emotions of the populace, though somewhere in the background was the greedy-eyed crowd which saw in the Jews a danger to their income. In Alexandria, the chief inciter against the Jews was a foul-mouthed popular orator.
So Alexandria, we had a heavy population in Alexandria, okay, which was in Egypt. All right. Alexandria was the capital of Egypt, named after Alexander the Freak. All right. So we had a heavy population over in Alexandria, Egypt. Read.
In Alexandria, the chief inciter against the Jews was a foul-mouthed popular orator called Apion, who pretended to be a philosopher,
So he wasn't a philosopher at all. Read.
but who was generally known as the Universal Tin Can.
Read on. A Jewish king.
A Jewish king. Only a spark was needed to set off the inflamed passions of the Alexandrian mob. That spark was provided by a Jewish celebration in honor of a newly appointed Jewish king. In the year 38, Gaius Caligula
So here we go. Caligula. Read.
became emperor of Rome.
Read.
He at once appointed his boon companion and fellow gambler, Agrippa, as king of Upper Galilee. Agrippa was a grandson of Herod and Miriam, and therefore partly of Hasmonean blood.
Right. So this is Agrippa. I think Agrippa the First. Okay, Agrippa the First. All right. I think he believed he's the one that put to death James in Acts 12. Acts chapter 12. Hey, y'all have the Bible Atlas? Look up Agrippa in the Bible Atlas. Agrippa. So Caligula appointed Agrippa. I think I got the Bible Atlas right here. One second. Yes, so it was Herod Agrippa the First. Herod Agrippa the First. Yep, give me Acts 12. That was him.
The book of Acts, chapter 12 and verse 1.
Read that.
Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James.
So this Herod, when it says Herod, remember, Herod had died already. Herod the Great. This is Herod. They all carried the name Herod. All right, so this is Herod Agrippa the First. Herod Agrippa the First, the grandson of Herod the Great. Okay, go ahead.
And he killed James.
So he put to death who?
James.
So he put to death one of the disciples, James, brother to John. Go ahead.
the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it please the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread.
All right, so that is Herod Agrippa the First. All right, he was appointed governor of by Caligula. Go back.
Agrippa was a grandson of Herod and Miriam, and therefore partly of Hasmonean blood. The appointment of a native king was generally considered as something of a restoration of Jewish independence.
Read.
When Agrippa passed through Alexandria on his way to take possession of his kingdom, the Jews saw fit to celebrate in his honor. To the Alexandrian mob, this was pointed out as a jibe at Egypt, which did not have a native king. On the day following the Jewish celebration, the
Go to the next page. I want to get to some points here. Start at they sent the demand.
Yes, sir. They sent a demand to the Roman governor of Egypt, Flaccus, that the Jews be made to put a statue of the Emperor Gaius in the synagogue so that they might show themselves as loyal Romans as the Egyptians who had such statues in their temples.
Now remember, Caligula put himself up as a deity, right? A god. So now he's forcing us, the Jews, to put him as a statue up in our temples. Okay? So that's what's going on here. Go ahead.
Because of his own political fears and ambitions, Flaccus.
So with us putting that statue in the statue of him in the temple, that was our loyalty to Rome. Go ahead.
Though he knew very well that the Jews could not put statues in their synagogues.
So he knew that already. That's not how we get down. Right? That's idolatry. Go ahead.
What's the bomb, man? Damn. Boom.
I got a scripture for that.
I do it for you.
You do?
Yeah, 2 Maccabees 6.
Go ahead.
Verse 2. Because remember, Caligula was saying he was Jupiter now, right?
Right.
Let's read that.
2 Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 2. And to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem.
So now they're trying to pollute our synagogues in what? In Alexandria, right?
And to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus.
They're trying to put an image of Caligula who was claiming to be Jupiter. So it's the same thing all over again during the time of the Greeks. Now the Romans, they're doing the same thing.
Right. At that time, it was Antiochus.
Antiochus the Great.
Right.
No, the fourth, right?
No, the Great. I think it was the Great at that time.
Was it Great?
That's 2 Maccabees 6?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the Great.
Okay, read.
And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwell in the place.
So yeah, just the same thing they were doing here. Like, let's put the image of the emperor in their synagogues. That way they could show their fealty to Rome.
Right.
The defender of strangers, Jupiter. So the same thing all over again.
That was our loyalty to them.
And then today they have what? In all our churches, they have the image of that
Caesar.
white Christ.
Of Caesar Borgia.
Cesare Borgia, yep. So it's the same thing. As long as you're worshiping that image there in your churches, we know that you're a good slave.
Yeah, that shows loyalty.
Yep.
That shows loyalty to your slave master. That's all that's meant. Go ahead.
Though he knew very well that the Jews could not put statues in their synagogues and that they had an imperial privilege freeing them from any such obligation, nevertheless chose to agree with the mob. He issued the order. When the Jews refused, he called them foreigners and publicly flogged many members of the Supreme Jewish Council.
So now he's beating us up. All right? He's beating us up now because now there was an order issue and we refused. We like, nah, we're not doing it. We're not putting a statue of you up in our synagogue. So now he's flogging us. He's coming down on us now, persecuting us. Go ahead.
Thus, instead of being punished, the mob found itself encouraged to do more mischief. They waited for no second invitation, but fell upon the homes of the wealthier Jews who lived outside of the Jewish districts and pillaged 400 of them.
See that? So now this is persecution. All right, go ahead.
Philo's mission. The Jews were neither weaklings nor cowards.
So we wasn't no weaklings or cowards. That ain't how we roll. Go ahead.
They had clashed with the mob on previous occasions. Probably that was why the mob had not attacked the Jewish district, but confined itself to the scattered homes outside. The Jews were also...
Hey, I want to say one thing. That's why Bishop been going over 2nd Ezra 16. He been bringing it out heavy because why? That same mob, the same thing's going to happen all over again. Why? Because they're going to start putting out different laws and so forth that we not going to be in agreement with, okay, for those of us that keep God's laws. And these mobs are going to come after us again and attack us, just like they're doing here.
It's going to be our people, too.
Right. Some of them, yeah. Yep. But the majority is going to be Esau. Go ahead.
The Jews.
And our people are going to be intertwined with that. Go ahead.
The Jews were also unwilling to let this attack pass without retaliating. Conditions, however, were not favorable as long as the governor was their enemy, and as long as the charge of lacking patriotism rested on them for refusing to put up a statue to the emperor. They decided to send a delegation to Rome to justify themselves and expose their enemies.
Read.
At the head of this delegation stood Philo. The Alexandrian pagans also sent a deputation, at the head of which stood the notorious Apion. As might have been expected, the mentally unbalanced Caligula...
The mentally unbalanced who?
Caligula.
Because he was crazy as hell. Mentally unbalanced.
Like Joe Biden today.
Like Joe Biden. Yeah,
Falling
right.
up the stairs.
Crack in the warehouse. What is it? Cocaine in the warehouse?
Yeah.
I said in the warehouse. The White House.
White House, yeah.
Falling off a bike.
Falling off a bike. Going up the airplane. This guy's crazy. Go ahead.
was flattered by Apion's appeal to him as to a god whose statue the willful Jews refused to honor. He paid little attention to Philo outside of asking him some foolish questions without even waiting for his answers. Having gained no satisfaction other than the recall of Flaccus, the Jewish delegation returned home, and the Jews waited for an opportunity to even the score with their enemies.
Now, this same history always repeats itself, right? This same thing happened during the time of Daniel. Remember with the statue? Same thing. During the Persian captivity, same thing. Okay, now we in the Roman captivity dealing with the same thing. Okay. Go to more riots.
More riots. The opportunity came when Caligula was assassinated. The Jews had been storing up arms and gathering aid from the Jews of Syria. In the ensuing riot, the results were less one-sided than the previous one.
All right, you can drop that. Give me the next page. We're just touching on how Caligula dealt with us. History of the Jews, 183. Give me page 183. I didn't highlight anything, so we're just going to go read.
Starting from the top.
Yeah, this state of things.
This state of things lasted for a month. The governor went so far as to arrest 38 members of the Great Council, to throw them into prison and publicly to scourge them. Even the female sex was not spared. If any maidens or women crossed the enemy's path, they were offered pig's flesh as food.
So listen, this is going more in detail of what we just read in the last in Caesar. What was that? In History of the Jews, Great Zeal. So this is going more in detail what happened. Go ahead. And upon their refusing to eat it, they were cruelly tortured. Not satisfied with all these barbarities, Flaccus ordered his soldiers to search the houses of the Judeans for any weapons that might be concealed there. And they were told to leave, not even the chambers of the modest maidens unsearched. This reign of terror continued until the middle of September. Jump down. Let me see. Jump down. Yeah, read. Go back to that paragraph. The emperor alone.
The emperor alone could have settled the vexed question as to whether the Judeans had the right of equal citizenship with the Greeks in Alexandria.
So the emperor is still Caligula at this time. All right, go ahead.
But he was then in Germany or in Gaul, celebrating childish triumphs, or in Britain, gathering shells on the seashore. When he returned to Rome, August 40, with the absurd idea of allowing himself to be worshipped as a god.
You see that? So Caligula had the ideal to be worshipped as a god. Go ahead.
And of raising temples and statues to his own honor, the heathen Greeks justly imagined that their cause against the Judeans was won.
Read.
They restored the imperial statues in the Alexandrian synagogues, convinced that in the face of so great a sacrilege, the Judeans would rebel and thereby arouse the emperor's wrath. This was actually the cause of a fresh disturbance, for the new governor of Alexandria took part against the Judeans, courting in this way the imperial favor. He insisted that the unhappy people should show divine honors to the images of the emperor.
You see that? So he insisted that we should... Even though he insisted that the unhappy people should show divine honors to his image. Go ahead.
And when they refused on the ground that such an act was contrary to their law.
Right, idolatry. Go ahead.
He forbade their observance of the Sabbath day.
Didn't we just read that in 2 Maccabees, right? Profane the Sabbath. Now he's setting up laws, mandates, decrees that now we can't even keep the Sabbath. Because why? We don't want to worship his image. Go ahead.
In the following words, he addressed the most distinguished of their race. How would it be if you were suddenly overwhelmed by a host of enemies, or by a tremendous inundation, or by a raging fire, if famine, pestilence, or an earthquake were to overtake you upon the Sabbath day? Would you sit idly in your synagogues, reading the law and expounding difficult passages?
Oh, so now he's disrespecting us. Go ahead.
Would you not rather think of the safety of parents and children, of your property and possessions? Would you not fight for your lives? Now behold, if you do not obey my commands, I will be all that to you.
Damn. So everything he named, he's saying, look, I'm going to be all that to you if you don't obey my image, if you don't worship my image. Go ahead.
The invasion of the enemy, the terrible inundation, the raging fire, famine, pestilence, earthquake, the visible embodiment of relentless fate. But neither the rich nor the poor allowed themselves to be coerced by these words.
Right. So we stayed strong.
That's
Go ahead.
right.
They stayed strong at this time. Read.
They remained true to their faith.
Remain true to what?
To their faith.
Of keeping God's laws. All right. We didn't allow him to move us.
That's right.
Okay. Now you may have seen, you probably had some that was moved and like, you know, all right, I worship the image, but he didn't move everybody. All of us. Go ahead.
And prepared to
He didn't move the remnant. Go ahead.
and prepared to undergo any penalties that might be inflicted upon them. Some few appear to have embraced paganism out of fear.
You see, there you go. Some of us, read it again.
Some few appear to have embraced paganism out of fear.
Out of fear. So you still had some of us that was like, nah. Just like, go back to Second Maccabees. No, First Maccabees 1. First Maccabees 1. The same thing happened during the Greek captivity. Nothing new under the sun. Y'all got anything to bring up?
No, go ahead.
First Maccabees.
Let's start from verse 42.
41.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me get there.
All right.
Go ahead.
First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people,
Democracy. Read.
and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king.
You see that? That everybody should leave their laws, right? Go ahead.
According to the commandment of the king.
So that was a commandment of the king at that time. Everybody should leave their laws. Go ahead. And we all should be one people. Read.
Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
So you had those of our people that wanted, that ran to join with the religion of the Greeks, of democracy, Christianity today. Go ahead.
And sacrifice unto idols and profane the Sabbath.
And you had those of our people that willingly sacrificed to idols and profaned the Sabbath. Read.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Just like we reading about Caligula, the strange laws of the land is worshiping his image. That's what he wanted us to do. That was the commandment at that time in Rome when he was emperor. Go ahead.
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths.
Same thing. Why? Because what he wanted us to do, put a statue of him up in our temple, in our synagogues. Why? So we could profane the Sabbath and sacrifice to his idol, to that idol, that statue. Go ahead.
And festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols.
Read.
And sacrifice swine's flesh.
Read.
And unclean beasts.
Understand, all these things come with sacrificing to idols. All these things come with sacrificing to idols. They go hand in hand. Read.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Well, go ahead.
To the end
Here's the purpose.
they might forget the law
Uh-huh.
and change all the ordinances.
That's the reason. That is the main purpose behind them changing all the laws and so forth. To come after us to the point that we forget our laws. Remember, he said, look, y'all not going to be allowed to celebrate your Sabbath day if you don't worship my image. All right. Now, like I said, going back to verse 42, you had 43, you had those of us that willingly ran to do this thing. Now, get me 2 Maccabees 6. You about to say something?
Yeah, this shows it happens every captivity where
Captivity,
they're just focused specifically on us. Even the wise men that came to the king during Babylon's time to change the laws to get Daniel.
Right.
Every law is focused on getting us to disconnect from our God.
Hey, listen, in order to change the laws, in order to come after us, you got to change it for everybody else. Why? So it don't look like you changing the laws because of us.
Right.
When they put out the mandate for the jab, Esau just a casualty of war.
Right.
But really they coming after us. Everything that they do is is directed towards us.
Right.
Even the what's the with the food, how they engineer the food. I forgot what it's called. What is it?
GMOs.
Nah, it's called something.
Bioengineering.
Yeah, bioengineering, but I forgot. It's a name for it.
Is it in that movie?
Nah. But anyway, they well now they can engineer the food to and direct it towards a certain race of people.
Oh, the genetic
Yeah,
markers.
right.
They direct this toward genetic markers.
Right.
Certain genetic markers
Yeah,
to
yep.
attack certain people.
Attack certain people.
Yeah.
But you don't think Esau's in the midst of that, but really it's for us. Remember, they changed all the law even during the Persian captivity with Haman.
Yep.
They had to change all the laws for everybody, but it was directed towards us. Those laws is directed towards us, man. All right.
That's why Psalms 83, he don't just say Esau. He said they are all in one consent.
Right.
And it names all the nations.
Yeah. They all agreement. They all in agreement. All right. Get 2 Maccabees real quick.
Yes, sir.
So we just still touching on who Caligula was and how he dealt towards us. All right.
Sorry, you said 2 Maccabees 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
You start verse 1.
All right. 2 Maccabees, chapter 6 and verse 1.
So remember, we read 1 Maccabees chapter 1, and how we willingly consented to the king when he set forth those decrees, right? Now, this is the flip side of it, of those of us that were forced to do it. Go ahead.
Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to
No. 2 Maccabees 6.
Yes, verse 1.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of God, and to pollute also the temple in Jerusalem.
Same thing Caligula wanted us to do, to pollute our temple. Go ahead.
And to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus.
To call it the what?
The temple of Jupiter Olympus.
In during the Roman captivity, he wanted it to be called the temple of Caligula. That's what he wanted. Go ahead.
And that in Gerizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwell in the place.
Read.
The coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles.
So this is what was going to happen. If we were to set his statue up in our temples, in our synagogues, this is what was going to happen. All right, go ahead.
And dallied
Got
with
revelings, clubbing, all of these things going on. Read.
orgies.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good. Who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful.
Read.
The altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth.
Read.
Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days.
So, verse 6, it was not lawful for us to keep Sabbath days. The same thing that Caligula was pushing for us not to do, for us not to keep our Sabbath.
That's letting you know that the mischief that was coming, that was grievous, it was laws they were putting in place.
Yep.
Laws they were putting in place to stop us from keeping the Sabbath and God's laws. Just
Right.
like Psalms 94 says, they frame mischief by law. They start putting laws and
Mandates
ordinances
and so forth.
in place. Like you can't do that anymore.
And it's gonna happen again today. It's gonna happen again. Like Bishop showed last night when they with this new digital with the Fed coin and all that coming out, and how now you can just put your hand over it. All that looks good right now.
Digital finance.
Digital finance. All that looks nice. That's like our
Convenient.
people. Just like the iPhone. We got the iPhone and we like, yo, this is hot, but really there's a deeper something sinister behind this iPhone. Trust
and
me.
Android too.
And Android.
Right.
Android very sinister.
Hey,
But go ahead.
no, I was going to say, just like I was saying earlier, it's the same thing when they put Caesar Borgia in the church, because it's harlots, it's whoredom going on in the church. They don't keep the Sabbath. They eating unlawful things. So
Yep.
this happened already. And all the churches are supposed to be the churches of God. They serving another God, doing all these things.
Don't they have the council of churches? They
The World
put out-
Council of
yeah,
Churches.
the World Council of Churches, where they tell the churches what they should teach,
Yeah.
and do, and so on and so
The
forth.
elites, man.
They already have that in place, and now we're trying to reverse it and remove it.
Right.
Yeah, all this new technology they coming out with, everything, they just lining us up, just like back then, lining us up, man, for what's really about to come. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So at this time during the Greek captivity, we couldn't even call ourselves Jews. We couldn't call ourselves Israelites.
It was a law.
It was a law.
That's crazy.
It was the actual law that we had to profane the Sabbath. We couldn't call ourselves Jews. We couldn't call ourselves Israelites. All right? So they passed these laws. Now jump to verse 9.
Verse 9.
No. Read on.
Verse 7. And in the day of the king's birth, every month there were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus...
So hold on. We was forced to celebrate a birthday. We were forced to celebrate a birthday because we didn't do that. That's not our custom. Go ahead.
They were bought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying ivy. Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by the suggestion of Ptolemy.
Read verse 8 again.
Moreover, there went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen.
Of the who?
Of the heathen.
Of the other nations. He started the decree with them. Remember, he starts with, look, all the laws, they're going to start with other nations first before it gets to us. It's for us, but they started out with the heathen first. Go ahead.
By the suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe in the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices.
You know what's crazy with that? Ptolemy and Antiochus, they were at odds with each other, but yet they agreed together when it comes to coming against us.
Yep.
Yep.
They all got what? One common, what they call one common enemy?
Yep.
That's us.
They fight each other all day, but
Right.
when it comes to being against us, they unite. They make sure, like, you know what? Let's put our beef, at pause right now, but we're going to come against these Jews. We're going to come against these niggas.
Right. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death.
So at this time, we were forced. We were forced at this time. All right? We were forced to follow the laws of the heathen, of the Greeks at this time. So the same thing was happening during the Roman captivity. All right?
Yeah, and that shows you we couldn't escape it, whether you were in Egypt, whether you were
Everywhere.
in the land of Canaan. Like, the law was being spread out
it was
throughout.
being spread out.
Wherever we were at.
Remember during the Persian captivity, he had 127 provinces,
provinces,
and he was
yep.
pushing them laws throughout all those 127 provinces.
Yep.
All right? So the same thing. All right, let's go back to the book.
Yeah, if you look at it too, that's they was trying to do that, and they didn't fully succeed. But when you go to Revelation 13, that's when they fully succeed of doing that. Let's get that real quick. 13. Because we rebelled against putting a statue in the temple. So now when you read in Revelation about the fourth beast that came up, start verse 7.
Yes, sir. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 7.
Verse 6.
Yo,
Y'all all right?
I don't know what's going on, but
Don't start,
Yo, what y'all
man.
pressed the wrong button? Somebody finger slipped on
I
that one.
told you, no
Sounded
theme
real-
songs today, man.
Sounding
what's
real
going on?
familiar
It's a
from
finger
yesterday.
No theme songs today,
Oh,
please.
man.
All right, go ahead.
Revelation chapter 13 verse 6. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God.
So let's talk about the fourth beast, which you all know that's the Roman Empire. Later on become United States. Blasphemy against God. Go ahead.
To blaspheme his name and his tabernacle.
So that is his temple. So they wanted to put his statues in our temple. Go
Right.
ahead.
And them that dwell in heaven.
Right. But then go ahead.
And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them.
So at this time, power was given to them over us to overcome us. Go ahead.
And power was given unto him over all kindreds and tongues.
Not only us, but over the whole world.
Over
Go
the
ahead.
whole world.
And tongues and nations.
Because that's why he wanted to establish in the first place.
Right.
Put himself as God, so everybody else. That's why he says he put his statues throughout the whole. He wanted everybody in the provinces to put a statue of him
Right.
as God. See what I'm
They
saying?
already did that. He already got them.
Right. You understand? So he wanted to rule the whole earth as gods on earth.
Right.
But people was rebelling like we rebelled against him. At this time here, power was given over for him to overcome us when you in verse 7. Go ahead.
And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose name are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the earth, of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity.
So this is why he's telling you who he's talking about. Go ahead.
He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the
Go
saints.
ahead.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth.
Nah, this is talking about America now, coming
Right.
from out of the Roman Empire, which is still part of the beast. Go ahead.
And he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
Blasphemy. Go ahead.
And he exercised all the power of the first beast
So he exercised all the power of the Roman Empire. Go ahead.
before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
That right there proves it's the Roman Empire when they fell. Go ahead.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from the heaven,
So that's when he dropped the atom bombs. Go ahead.
maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men,
Go ahead.
and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth
So
by
if I do it, he deceived the whole earth. Go ahead.
by the means of these miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beasts, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live.
There you go again. Right back again. Make an image, a statue of me, to worship me as a God. Hold on. Go ahead.
And he had power to give life unto the image of
This
the
time
beast.
now, remember the first one, he had no power. Right now, he has the full power.
Yeah,
to
that's what I'm
give
about
the
to say.
life.
That's what I'm about to say.
Yeah, to give
go
the
ahead.
life, right, unto the image of the beast.
Right.
Which life he gave this time, he put himself as Christ now.
Right.
Before, he was just a statue of him as a God. This time, he has power.
He got power now.
over the whole planet Earth. And he put himself now as God, Christ, and the angels. Go ahead.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak.
Right. So that's why you see in the movies, Passion of Christ.
Hey, put
He's
the pictures
Christ.
up. Y'all got pictures? Put them
You
up.
understand? There you go right there. Yeah. He's Christ. He's the angels. He's the Jews. He's everybody that dwell in heaven.
Right.
Blasphemy. Go ahead.
That he should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be
That's
killed.
the same thing you just read in Maccabees.
Right.
You don't worship him, you're gonna die. That's the same thing, and that's how we was forced into Christianity. If you didn't accept Christianity, you kill. So out of fear, our people was forced to accept the image of the beast.
Right.
Right. Put that up.
That's heavy.
See that? Put himself as God. That's the same thing in
Second Thessalonians.
Thessalonians, yeah.
You want to get that? You got it?
Yes, sir.
Good.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4.
Yo, hold up. I'm sorry. Go back to Revelation. Let's read verse 16.
Revelation chapter 13, verse 16.
Uh-huh.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor,
That both small countries, small nation, great nation, go ahead.
rich and poor,
Rich nation, poor nation,
free and bond,
free and bond, go ahead.
to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead.
So he forces them. He forces all nations to worship him as God. Back then, he didn't have that power.
No.
He couldn't do
Nah.
it. But this time, since we brought down, that's why all the focus is on us. Destroy the Jews. Don't let them know who they are, because we always stand in their ways. Without us being brought down, that's why, like you said earlier, with that the money system, you get all the nation to start it and say, see, everybody else is doing it. You should do it too.
Right.
Now, if we say we're not doing it now, you're going to get all the nation to come against us, to fight against us, to force us to do it.
We the problem.
We're the problem. That's what Bishop always says, that the history is going to repeat itself again.
Right.
Basically, the same tactics.
And that's why it says in the second Esdras that evil shall increase in the last days, because more power is given to Esau in the last days.
Yep.
Right. And during the Persian cap, give me the Esther and the Parker for Esther 13 and 4. Yeah. Esther 13 and 4. The backup, the land back off of what Officer Clark is bringing out. Hey, it's heavy what you just brought out, because I was thinking that as he's bringing the scripture out, at the time that Caligula wanted us to worship him as a god, he had to force us. Now they done dropped the atom bomb, and this time we willingly like, oh shoot,
everybody willingly.
Yeah, like
everybody. It's like, yo, who can fight with this guy?
Yeah, who can fight this guy?
Okay, you got
He must be God.
He must be God.
Right.
That's right.
Read that.
Esther chapter 13, and you want verse 4. Declared unto us that in all nations throughout the world there were scattered a certain malicious people.
So now this is the popular persuasion that we are certain malicious people, a hate group. Go ahead.
That had laws contrary to all nations.
Our laws are contrary to the other nations. Go ahead.
And continually despise the commandment of kings.
And we always was at that time despising the commandments of kings. God's laws is in opposition of the commandment of the kings. Go ahead.
So as the uniting of our kingdoms honorably intended by us cannot go forward.
You see that? So the other nations are already in agreement with what he wanted, what the Persian king wanted to do, what Haman wanted to do. But the fact that we wasn't trying to hear that, we was in opposition of everybody. Everybody. Go ahead.
Seeing then, we understand that this people alone is continually in opposition unto all men.
Unto all men. Not some. We was in opposition to all men. Everybody.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Differing in the strange manner of their laws, and evil affected to our state.
You see that? Okay. That's it?
No.
Read on.
Working all the mischief they can, that our kingdom may be firmly established, that our kingdom may not be firmly established.
Right. So you see, they say working all the mischiefs, because they got to make us sound like, you know, we the bad guys.
Right. That's why they call us a hate group.
They call us the hate group.
Yep.
Right.
All right.
That's like when it says in the scripture where it says that to some it's the smell of death. Us keeping the law to other nations, that's what they say. Oh, that's mischief against all men.
Yeah.
Right. Smell of death for them.
Smell death.
Damn, man, we're about to lose our power.
Yep.
Right. So all praises. Hey, from there, we're gonna take a quick break. All right, just a quick break. Hey, if you want to call or text us, 267-702-6121. All right, you can call or send a text. All right, the number is 267-702-6121. All right, so we're going to take a quick break real quick, and we will be right back. All right.
Get 'em, holy the visual. This moment is pivotal, clear like a digital. Phonies can't copy originals. We the first on the earth in the physical. You still in our image is criminal. All your hatred is known and is visible. We breaking the mold of traditional. You Negroes are mythical, more like a biblical miracle. Bringing the fire, the smiths of the trade. Crafting the image they try to evade. We spray from the bottom, the roots of the brave. Fruits of the tree, we ain't throwing no shade. Our brothers are dying.
Day 4 Tabernacle. This is what it looked like. I'm gonna give my brother his credit. He's going in every day, okay? Every day.
Flattering empty words, we just plant the seed and we let it grow. Man, I light them up like it's petrol. You ain't got insurance or a gecko. I don't think they hear me, there's an echo. They ain't Israel, must be Greco. Eat them whole race on the decline. We were built different like we define. Once you get this knowledge, ain't no rewind. God's artwork, peep the design, check the masterpiece. The prophecy done got it.
Israel united in Christ from corners to countries, gathering the 12 tribes of Israel. We gonna take the world. Hey, Most High in Christ, bless Israel, Bishop of that. Yeah, some of you call me the general, and I appreciate that term, but today we're going to find out if I'm a true general or not. في متى 28 أمر المسيح بالتأديب اذهبوا إلى كل الأمم وعمدوهم باسم الآب والابن والروح القدس وعلمهم أن ينتبهوا بغض النظر عما أوصيك بفعله كما نعلم فإن 12 قبيلة من إسرائيل كما قال يعقوب 1:1 منتشرة في جميع أنحاء العالم جميع البلدان، من تجارة الرقيق جنوب الصحراء الكبرى إلى تجارة الرقيق عبر المحيط الأطلسي. حسناً، سنتعامل مع ذلك. Das Evangelium wurde überall gepredigt, doch es gibt noch viel zu tun. Okay, hinzu. Korintherbrief Kapitel 10, rund Vers 16. Ich glaube, Paulus hat gesagt, man solle das Evangelium in Regionen jenseits seiner selbst predigen und sich nicht mit der Arbeit anderer Männer rühmen. Wir wollen nicht damit prahlen, dass kein anderes Lager so hoch arbeitet, dass wir auf eine Mission berufen werden. Wir müssen diese Mission erfüllen. Ik heb je moedig, dapper en gedurft nodig Diakenen, Kapiteins, Offizieren, Soldaten op te staan en jezelf waardig te tonen voor deze waarheid. Oké, dus wat ik kan doen, ik kan je iets laten zien. Yoku kite, kono chizu o miseru. Kanada ni wa ikutsuka no gako arimasu. Amerika no itaru toporo ni mo aru. Takaki kami ni kanshashimasu. Tsugi wa Mekishiko ni hairu. No tenemos ninguna base todavía aquí. Entiende, no tenemos fundamento. Tenemos enseñanzas, pero ningún fundamento. El Altísimo nos acaba de permitir abrir una escuela aquí en Ecuador. Pero escucha, mira, no tenemos fundamento en estas áreas. Está bien, tenemos algunas enseñanzas, pero ningún fundamento. Sin fundamento, necesitamos llegar a toda Argentina y Chile. Tuna shule kadhaa katika bara la Afrika kutoa sifa zote kadhalika walio juu zaidi kadhalika hilo shule kadhaa tunazo hapa, lakini hiyo haitoshi. Tunahitaji shule nyingi zaidi za ukweli wa Injili inayofundishwa sawa. Tunahitaji kugonga maeneo haya Madagascar hata Zambia, Angola sawa. Ndio tunaanza msingi hapa Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Congo. D'accord, nous n'avons rien. Oh, nous aussi nous avons l'Europe. Pas encore de fondation en Espagne, une petite école France. L'Allemagne nous en faut plus. Il y a plus de travail à faire, plus de travail à faire. Eka, आणि या भागात कोणतीही मूलभूत शिकवण नाही. जेव्हा मी पाया म्हणतो, तेव्हा मला शाळा म्हणतात. मी एक माणूस एक संपूर्ण गेला याचा अर्थ असा नाही इकडे क्षेत्र आणि बाकी काहीतरी शिकवले. मी बोलत आहे की कोणताही पाया नाही, या प्रदेशात सुवार्ता शिकवली जात आहे. म्हणून आम्हाला आवश्यक आहे तेथे सत्य शिकवायचे. ठीक आहे. अगदी ऑस्ट्रेलिया. आमचे काही लोक इथे आहेत ऑस्ट्रेलियामध्ये. ठीक आहे. न्यूगिनी, इंडोनेशिया, सुमात्रा, व्हिएतनाम. ठीक आहे. या प्रदेशामध्ये आहेत इस्रायली पाया नाही. सत्य सुवार्ता शिकवली पाहिजे की आपल्या लोकांना या प्रदेशात विखुरलेले आहेत. Está bem, a partir do momento do comércio subsaariano de escravos. Compreende isso. Compreende isso, Israel. Compreende isto. Muito trabalho a fazer. Muito trabalho a fazer. Allora Israele, ho bisogno di alcuni volontari. Ho bisogno che alcuni di voi uomini potenti si alzino in piedi. Diaconi, capitani, ufficiali, soldati, alzatevi. Ho bisogno di volontari per questa missione.
Shalom, brothers and sisters, Most High in Christ bless. We want to thank you all for following Isaiah 11 ministry. We're here to inform you that the local Sabbath classes will now be available in all languages. All of the classes from the bishops, deacons, and captains will now be available in all languages. As it says in Isaiah chapter 11 verse 12, says that the Most High shall set up an ensign for the people. Stay tuned. Most High in Christ bless you all.
Yeah, hey, dream team be rowdy. What? My team do a blitz every county. Look, my God put a price on your past ahead, and I'm pulling up for the bounty. What? On the block with the water they drown.
Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ blessed. I'm Deacon Malachi. We down here at Johannesburg, South Africa. We're on our way to today's our first day down here. It's very early morning right now. It's 7 o'clock. We're on our way to do a podcast. All right, stay tuned. Today we're going to tell you what's going on today, all right? Keep us in your prayers, all right? Shalom, Most High bless.
I'm moving here.
Every American.
Hey, shalom, shalom. We are back from the break. All right, so off the quad, want to bring out a scripture.
Oh yeah.
2 Thessalonians.
Yeah, just to lean back of the same thing we just read in Revelation.
Right.
It start verse 3. We're going to jump from 4 and then jump to 8.
Yes, sir. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first.
So that we had to fall first so he could establish himself as God on earth.
Right.
Because, go ahead.
And that man of sin be revealed,
So that he could be revealed as the man of sin. Go ahead.
the son of perdition,
Go ahead. Son of hell. Go ahead.
who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God.
Same thing we just read in Revelation. He opposes himself as God. So he blasphemed against God and everybody that dwell in heaven. Like Revelation just said. Go ahead.
Or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God.
See? He asked God, seated in the temple of God. He wanted to put his statue in the temple as God for us to worship him as God. So go ahead.
Shewing himself that he is God.
Saying that he is God. Go ahead.
Remember ye not,
No, jump to verse 8. I don't know what we're doing.
verse 8. And then shall that wicked be revealed.
So right there, Paul is telling you that he's the wicked.
Right.
So that he could be revealed as the wicked, the son of perdition. Go ahead.
Whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth,
The Bible, go ahead.
and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming.
Second coming of Christ. Read.
Even him whose coming is after the working of
There
Satan,
you go. He's the devil,
Right,
the Bible speaks
right.
of. He's working as after the work of Satan. Go ahead.
with all
He
power
has all power.
and
And
signs
sign, dropping the bombs. Go ahead.
and lying
He's
wonders.
a liar. All praises. Go ahead. That's it.
That was it.
Hey,
All praise.
where is that where it says the Most High let what verse is that?
That's the same.
Only the Lord let.
Only will them that let.
7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work.
So the mystery of iniquity of sin, iniquity means sin, that already worked was Rome at that time. Rome, go ahead.
Only he who now letteth will let.
Why? Because the Most High gave them an appointed time to rule. All right. Go ahead.
Until he be taken out of the way.
So go back to verse 4 real quick.
Verse 4. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped.
And who was doing that at this time? Who was the emperor at that time? Caligula. Caligula was the emperor at that time. He was the one that wanted to set up his statues. He the one that deified himself as God. Now, all the Caesars did the same thing. Okay, because that was how they got down. All right. But when at this time that Paul was writing, you had Caligula, you had Nero. Okay, those emperors at that time, crazy as hell, setting themselves up as God, who opposed God. Read.
So that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
Remember the book said that he was talking to Jupiter.
Right.
He would talk to Jupiter, correct Jupiter, like he was over Jupiter, which is their God. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Remember ye not that when I was with you, I told you these things. And now we know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time.
His time is now. He's being revealed right now. All right, being revealed right now. All right, so all praises for that. Now, so I just wanted to touch on the fourth Caesar, which was Caligula. Now, we're going to jump into the disciples. We're going to go into the ministry. We're going to start to go into the ministry of the disciples, how the disciples were moving, how they spread the gospel forth, and the subsequent travels that the disciples were doing. All right? Give me Luke chapter 6. So we're going to go into the disciples, and as this episode goes on, the Echoes of Rome, we're going to go into the martyrdom of the disciples. We're going to get into all of that, all right? And how the same thing that you see that was going on during the Roman captivity is happening now. It's going to happen. All right? You're going to see the parallels between Rome and America. All right? Read that Luke chapter 6, verse 12. Let me get there.
Yeah.
Read.
The book of Luke, chapter 6 and verse 12. And it came to pass in those days that he went out into the mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God.
Talking about Christ. Read.
And when it was day, he called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles. Simon, whom he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes.
Read.
And Judas the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, which also was the traitor.
Hey, now, Christ chose 12 disciples. Look up the word disciple. What does it mean to be a disciple, an apostle?
Disciple, a person or follower of Jesus during his life, especially one of the 12 apostles.
So a disciple, a personal follower of Jesus during his life, especially one of the 12 apostles. All right. Now, the word we want to focus on is what? Follower. Look at the root word of disciple. Discipline. So disciple comes from the word discipline. As a disciple, you learn discipline. All right. So that's what we was learning from Christ, the laws, how to keep the laws, discipline. All right. Go to some of the synonyms.
Follower, adherent.
No. Read a follower or student.
Yes, sir. A follower or student of a teacher.
You see that? So disciple means a follower or student of a teacher. Read.
Leader.
A leader.
Or philosopher.
So a follower, a student of a teacher, leader, or philosopher. All right. Get some of the synonyms.
Follower, adherent, believer, admirer, devotee, acolyte, votary, pupil, student,
a student,
protege, learner, upholder, supporter, advocate, proponent, apologist, cella, that one.
Which one?
Bhakta.
Yeah, that's probably Elam or something. Bhakta. No, that's probably how you say it. Bhakta.
Oh, praises.
That's probably I don't know. All right. Anyway, so the word disciple goes into a follower of a leader, a follower, student of a leader, a teacher, or a philosopher. All right. Now, from there, get me.
So the apologists think they're disciples.
Dang.
Yeah. Obviously, they think. All right. Give me John chapter 1, verse 40. Because before Christ chose his disciples, understand that remember John was on the scene. You think John didn't have disciples? You think he didn't have followers? All right, so give me John chapter 1, verse 40. It's because why? Some of the apostles of the 12 were following John before they started following Christ. All right? Give me John chapter 1.
The book of John, chapter 1 and verse 40. One of the two which heard John spake and followed him was Andrew, Simon.
One of the two which heard John spake and followed him. Read.
Was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother.
Right. So Peter and Andrew, obviously they followed John. All right. They followed John. Okay. So before they were disciples of Christ, they became disciples. They were first disciples of John. All right. Give me John chapter 4. Let me show you something. You know John was baptizing, right?
John chapter 4 and verse 1. When therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized.
What? Read that again.
When therefore the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself.
So Christ, go ahead. It's going to say it. Go ahead.
Though Jesus himself baptized not, but his disciples.
Right. So Christ didn't baptize with water, but the disciples were still doing it. Why? Because who were they following? John. They were disciples of John before they became disciples of Christ. All right. But Christ did not baptize with water. All right. Christ baptized with the laws. All right. That was it. Baptized with the laws. All right. The disciples were still baptizing though. Okay. From there. Now, give me the first book. Let me get So what we going give me history of the Jews real quick by Heinrich Graetz.
It's crazy how
Matter of fact, no, I want Samuel. Go ahead. What you about to say?
The churches say don't keep the Old Testament law. Yeah, a lot of their traditions like water baptism and tithing are in the Old Testament.
Yep, they in the Old Testament.
Hypocrites.
Hey, while we on that, give me 1 Peter 3:21. 1 Peter 3:21.
Book of 1 Peter, chapter 3 and verse 21.
That's what Christ was doing.
The like figure whereunto even baptism doth also now save us, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh,
but meaning what? In water, not putting away the filth of the flesh in water. Go ahead.
But the answer of a good conscience toward God.
But the answer of a good conscience of your mind towards God. That's the baptism. Not dipping you in water. You know why? Because in the churches, you get dipped in water. You if you're a crackhead and you go get dipped in water in the church, you gonna come up a what? A crackhead.
A wet crackhead.
A wet crackhead. There was a video on that. A crackhead, he went and got baptized. He got right up and smoke.
Yeah, he lighted it up.
Lighted it up. Mm-hmm. All right. So now we deal with the conscience of a good conscience towards God. All right. So the baptism should be in your mind, meaning what? Change. All right. Now, let's deal with the prophet Samuel. Prophet Samuel. Remember, we dealing with disciples. Disciples. What happened?
I thought I heard something.
More sound effects.
Oh gosh. Hey, let's read that, please.
Samuel, however.
No. Let me see. Go up. Yeah, go down. Read the top.
Long before excursus H on the schools of the prophets.
On the schools of the prophets. So we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back before Christ chose his disciples. What I want to show you is that all of the major prophets had disciples, had followers, students that were called in the scriptures sons of the prophets. Right. So let's get into that. Before we actually delve into the 12, we're going to get into the fact that we always had disciples throughout our history.
That was a custom that we had. That's how it was normal that Christ came and had 12 disciples.
Listen.
It wasn't nothing new.
It wasn't nothing new. We always had disciples. Always. I know, people think it you probably got Christians that think Christ was the first one to have disciples. They probably think that. Who knows? But that was nothing new. Remember, I said John had disciples before Christ.
Right.
And we're going to go back even before John and show you that we always had disciples. Every major prophet.
Moses and Joshua.
Yep. Right. Read that.
Long before Plato had gathered his disciples round him in the olive grove, or Zeno in the portico, these institutions...
So even the other nations... even the other nations, a lot of times they had disciples too. All right? Dealing with evil. Go ahead.
These institutions, schools of the prophets, had sprung up under Samuel in Judea.
So we had institutions, schools called schools of the prophets. That sprung up under who?
Under Samuel in Judea.
That sprung up under Samuel. All right, let's read.
Before the days of Samuel, the name of prophet very rarely occurs. Incidentally, the title is once given to Abraham, and Moses is on many occasions so styled. See especially the great passage in Deuteronomy chapter, where he is made. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Chapter 18.
We black. We don't study Roman numerals. Yeah. But you'll be all right. I figured that's why he skipped the first one, but that's Genesis 20 and 7.
You about to say X's and O's.
Go ahead.
Where he is made the type of the old order.
Jump down. Jump down.
Samuel.
Yep.
Samuel, however,
Watch this.
Samuel, however, was the true founder of the prophetic order.
So Samuel was the true founder of the prophetic order. Read.
Samuel the prophet and the seer.
The who?
And the seer.
The seer means what? The seer means a person that could see in the future. Deacon Malachi was bringing that out on one of the Raven and Wolves episode. A seer is a person that can see in the future. The root word is see, a seer. Go ahead. So before the prophets were called prophets, they would name seers. Read.
Was the title by which this great and loved man was known not only in his own, but in all succeeding generations.
Read.
There is no doubt but that one of the great works of Samuel's life was to call into existence unions, or as they have been subsequently termed, schools of the prophets.
Those unions are also called disciples. Read.
We must not, however, conclude that all, or that even a large portion of the people trained in these schools of Samuel were prophets in the sense of being able to make predictions, or even to write or speak as inspired men. This divine gift, we must remember, was a gift of God, which he bestowed on whom he would.
So hold on. Read that again. We must not, however.
We must not, however, conclude that all, or that even a large portion of the people trained in these schools of Samuel were prophets in the sense of being able to make predictions, or even to write or speak as inspired men.
Why? Because a lot of the prophets had certain different gifts and so forth. So not everybody was able to make predictions. Not everybody was able to write as inspired men. All right, but they would. Everybody had different gifts.
Right.
Go ahead.
That's the same thing why Christ says that in 1 Corinthians 12. Are all prophets?
Right.
All
Paul said that.
Yeah, sorry. Paul.
Go ahead.
This divine gift, we must remember, was a gift of God, which he bestowed on whom he would.
Read.
He, in his omniscient,
omniscient.
Thank you. Omniscience.
No,
Omniscience.
Omniscience. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Knew who among men were fitted for this grave and important office.
So the same thing today. The Most High know what spirits are fit for the purpose of bringing this kingdom down. He knows already. Go ahead.
But the trained in Samuel's nailth, in that school of his by Ramah, those known in later days as sons of the prophets.
So it changed from the school of the prophets to being called the sons of the prophets. Go ahead.
Were taught the study of the law.
What was happening in the schools?
They were taught the study of the law.
So the sons of the prophets were taught the study of the law. Just like we being taught today, the study of the law. Come on, read.
And the story of the divine guidance of Israel.
And the what?
And the story of the divine guidance of Israel.
And the history of the divine guidance of Israel. When you look at the bishop class, when you look at the class of the leadership, what do you think you listening to? You listening to the study of the law and the divine story of the guidance of Israel. It was so back then, it's so today.
That's right.
Read.
They were most carefully trained in music and singing.
Hey, Officer Abaddon, music and singing.
Original royalty.
Original royalty. Music and singing. Go ahead.
And in these quiet homes of learning and religious.
Come on.
Exercises the records of the past.
When we go through the Bible, we're going through the records, our records of the past. That's what we're doing. Remember Romans 15:4 said, look, our comfort is in these scriptures, the records of the past.
Let's get it.
Yep.
Get that.
It says religious exercise.
Religious exercise.
We were acting upon the things that are written
in
the Bible.
Exercising.
We're exercising it.
And that's one of the reasons why Esau is hiding the Bible from us.
Yep.
They don't want us to go into the book.
The book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
Right. That's the religious exercise. Give me Judges 5 and 11, the religious exercise of the records of the past.
And look what it says too right after that. If you want to read it real quick.
The records of the past, we may be certain, were examined and copied with extreme care.
We made sure to make sure we did things as it is written.
Right.
We copied it and we were
With
careful
extreme
about
care.
Right. Judges chapter 5, verse 11. They that are delivered from the noise of archers and the place of drawing waters, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord.
So I want it rehearsed. We rehearsing today. Back then, the same thing. We carefully, it was a religious, rehearsing is a religious exercise
Right.
that we're doing in the scriptures.
Rehearsing the righteous acts.
Rehearsing the righteous acts.
Religious exercise, and this same thing.
Rehearsing,
Different words.
exercising, you practicing to get better. Progressing.
You're strengthening your spirit.
Right,
when
strengthening
you're
the spirit.
exercising those religious.
Go back to the book. Yep.
We may be certain were examined and copied with extreme care.
Uh-huh.
And the materials out of which the divine records were in after days compiled were no doubt there arranged and classified. And Samuel's schools by Ramah, we may assume, were trained under their renowned master.
Hold on. Read that slow. Read it slow again.
And Samuel's schools by Ramah, we may assume, were trained under their renowned master.
Who?
David.
King David was a son of the prophet under Samuel. Go ahead.
Gad
the prophet.
Nathan
the prophet.
Heman.
The one that reproved King David for when he committed adultery and murdered Uriah. Who else?
Heman.
Go ahead.
And others whose names as writers, prophets, and teachers subsequently became famous after the days of Samuel.
You think they just became famous out of nowhere? No, right. they were being taught the laws and so forth under Samuel. Go ahead.
Heman was one of David's counselors. He also wrote Psalms 88, and he was the grandson of Samuel.
Right, all praises. Either Levite, huh? Yeah, all praises. Huh?
Hey,
Say it with your chest. Say it with your chest.
Hold up. Yo, let's get 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. And Samuel himself, remember, he was, when he was born, his mom bring him to the temple to become a student of Eli the prophet.
Right.
That was a vow she had, like if they had a son,
right,
it would be the Lord's, and they stay in the temple.
Right. 1 Samuel 3, verse 1.
Read that.
1 Samuel chapter 3 and verse 1. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision.
I'm sorry, go back, 1 Samuel 2:26 first.
Yes. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 26. Verse 26. And the child Samuel grew on and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men.
Right, so he grew in the temple. So, and then the Spirit of the Lord was on him, and he had favor both with the Lord and also with men. So, go to chapter 3, verse 1.
Chapter 3 and verse 1. And the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli, and the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision.
Go verse 6.
Verse 6. And the Lord called yet again Samuel. And Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord.
See that? Samuel did not. He was in training. So he didn't know that the calling was from the Most High. So he went back to Eli and said, no. Then Eli realized, he said, oh, the Lord is calling him. Hey, this is what's happening to you.
You know, it was interesting, officer, too. He said he called them my son. That's what it says, sons of the prophets.
Son of the prophet.
He was being trained under Eli at that time.
Right.
And the Most High used Samuel. All right, I'm going to give him this gift.
Right.
And Eli recognized, all right, this is the man that I'm training that the Most High is going to use.
Right. And he said, this is your calling right now. So it says, verse 7 again.
Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him.
Go ahead.
And the Lord called Samuel again the third time, And he arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child.
Yeah, that's your time. Go ahead.
Therefore Eli said unto him, Samuel, go, lie down.
So now he's giving them instruction now. The schools of the prophet.
There you go.
Stitching them.
Bring it out.
You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
And it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say,
This is how you deal with it. Go ahead.
Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, Speak, for thy servant heareth.
Boom. Right there.
Damn, no
Bring
bombs.
it out.
No bombs.
No bombs. Y'all don't know what's
All
happening.
right, man.
They lost.
Dang.
That was heavy, man.
See what I mean?
Hey, it's going over. I guess it's going over the head. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thy servant heareth you now.
Damn.
So now he knows.
It said the Lord came and stood.
Stood. Damn.
That's bad. All praises.
No bombs. It's okay.
No bombs.
It's all
Still
right.
no bombs.
Still no
huh?
bombs.
I got it.
Hey, y'all good back there, bro?
I
He's
know,
feeding-
man.
Yeah, he's
he's
lost.
being fed to the beast.
Bro,
right now.
they not even. Hey, they not even responding back.
Right.
I'm asking.
Yeah, they get traumatized from last yesterday.
Hey, go back to the page, real quick. Go back to the page. Can y'all at least pull that up for me?
Shoot, all praise. Look, we got people in the comments saying boom.
Damn.
All praises.
All
Hey,
praises.
hey, we
Somebody in
thank.
the spirit.
Hey, thank you. Thank y'all.
Yeah, we hiring.
Hey, go back to when it says in Samuel schools.
In Samuel's schools by Ramah, we may assume were trained under their renowned master, David, Gad, Nathan, Heman, and others whose names as writers, prophets, and teachers subsequently became famous after the days of Samuel.
Get me First Chronicles chapter 25. And start at verse 1. First Chronicles 25, verse 1.
First Chronicles chapter 25 and verse 1. Moreover, David and the captains of the hosts separated to the service of the sons of Asaph and of Heman.
Of who?
And of Heman.
Of Heman.
And of Jeduthun. Who should prophesy.
They should do what?
Should prophesy with harps.
You see that? They were prophesying through music.
That's what we were reading earlier, too.
we were
about
reading
music.
Yep.
Music and dancers
Yeah.
and all that.
Go ahead.
With psalteries and with cymbals. And the number of the workmen according to their service was.
Jump to 5.
Verse 5. All these were the sons of Heman, the king seer.
The king seer. Heman, the king seer, the prophet. Heman, remember, was under Samuel.
Yo, show those pictures, man. Put them up.
I don't know why they're not putting the pictures up.
They lost right now, man.
They used all their spirit yesterday. They're depleted today.
Go ahead.
Can they see?
All. Yeah, they can see it.
Hey, listen. Hold on. If y'all have any pictures, bro, put them up. I know we reading the books, but if we in the scriptures, put the pictures up that y'all bringing out. Go ahead.
All these were the sons of Heman, the
Uh-huh.
king's seer, in the words of the Lord of God, to lift up the horn. And God gave to Heman 14 sons and 3 daughters.
Dang. So the Most High blessed him with 14 sons and 3 daughters. All right. But notice he was the king's seer. Heman was the king's seer. All right. From there, give me 1 Kings 4 and
30.
Yep. 1 Kings 4 and 30. I'm just showing you something about Heman, the men that King David had around him.
1 Kings chapter 4 and verse 30. And Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the children of the east country and all the wisdom of Egypt. For he was wiser than all men, than Ethan and the Ezrathite and Heman.
And who?
And Heman.
So King Solomon they said he was wiser than who? Read it from the top again.
For he was wiser than all men.
Okay.
Than
Read.
Ethan, the Ezrathite, and Heman.
And Heman, because Heman was wise. Heman was wise to the point that they had to put him there. That look, King Solomon even wiser than him. Why? Because at that time, they were the elder men at that time. But remember, they all was brought up with King David under Samuel. They were, look, we was always together. They were always together. Go ahead.
And Heman, and Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahal, and his fame was in all nations round about.
So the men that King David came up with under the as the sons of the prophets, learning under Samuel, those same men was around. Most High kept them together even through David's kingship. They became his seers and so forth. But they all was together. That was his generation of the men that he came up with.
Right.
Always together. Go ahead. Were you about to say something?
Yeah. In verse 3, then Ethan, the Ezrathite, is Jeduthun that we read in Chronicles. He was also called Ethan.
Okay. All
So that
praises.
was the
All
other
praises.
counselor.
All praises.
Yo, read that, the bottom part of verse 31.
Verse 31. And his fame was in all nations round about.
That is fame was all nations for their wisdom and understanding.
All
It's like we
praises.
read in was that Deuteronomy 3, 4?
It shall be your wisdom.
Right.
Right. You gonna bring it up?
Want to?
So this is what they were saying about those men. So the fame was into all nation. Is it 4 verse 3?
I got it.
Five?
Verse 6.
Verse 6,
Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 6. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations.
That's why they say that he was wiser than all the kings of the earth.
Right.
Which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people.
See that? So that's
All
why
praises.
it was famous to all nations. Go ahead, officer.
Now, yeah, before King Solomon came on the scene, the wise men was Ethan the Ezrathite and Heman and Charcoal and Daughter, okay, and the sons of Mahal. And I'm pretty sure they were all under Samuel because that was King David's generation of the that were learning under Samuel at that time.
You mind if I bring out one scripture, officer?
Bring it out.
Can you get 1 Ezra 1? Just going into those three men that was mentioned in 1 Chronicles, Heman, Jeduthun, and Asaph. They were David's counselor, and then again they became Solomon's counselor, like we were just saying. But it even says it in Ezra when Ezra goes over the history again. 1 Ezra chapter 1 and read verse 15.
1 Ezra chapter 1 verse 15. The holy singers also, the sons of Asaph, were in their order according to the appointment of David, to wit, Asaph, Zacharias.
Zacharias is Jeduthun again, Heman. It has replaced it with Zacharias. Go ahead.
And Jeduthun,
That was probably his Greek name.
Right.
Go ahead.
who was of the king's retinue.
Of what?
Of the king's retinue.
Look up that word retinue real quick. Those three men were of King David's retinue. What does that mean?
In Chronicles says Heman was a singer.
Right, he was a king, seer, and the singer. Yep,
And
king,
a
seer,
musician,
and a
'cause he was
seer.
playing with cymbals too. So
Right.
He was a musician,
Right.
a singer.
He was
and a-
prophesying
yeah.
through music.
All three of them were, because Jeduthun was the chief musician that they would write to in the Psalms, and Asaph was also a singer. So all of them were prophets singing and prophesying.
Dang.
Retinue, a group of advisors,
Uh-huh.
assistants,
Uh-huh.
or others accompanying an important person.
So they were the group. They were David's advisors during his time, counselors. Because why? They went to those same schools as David.
Right. Why wouldn't you keep the men around? Why wouldn't you keep those same men around you?
Right.
That you came up with. That's keeping God's laws.
Right.
A more common term today would be called retainers.
Right.
Right.
And
The
even
king's
that's
retainers were the men, his advisors, his warriors that were with him
Right.
at all times.
right. And even when you look in the King James Bible in 1 Chronicles 25, it gives a number for those three men that says the hands of the king. Just like we see in those movies.
Yeah.
He has a hand. Those three were his hands.
Right hand men, man. You know, so all praise for that. All praises. Give me the next page. So we just read up. Let me see if there's any more on Samuel. Let me see. Matter of fact, go to the next page. Go to the next page. Yep. Let me see. Read that.
It is at the close of the period of the judges that the office of prophet first becomes not merely an occasional manifestation, but a fixed institution in the Jewish church. Samuel is the true founder of
Hey, I'm sorry. Hold on. Hey, do y'all have that page? I brought it out in the Man Up Monday class. It's the history of the Jews with King David. Remember I brought out with Saul? I was going over Saul how he was trying to come after King David. Because Saul was also in the schools. He was there too under Samuel. See if y'all have that page for me real quick, about King David. I think it's like page History of the Jews, Heinrich. Blow that up, let me see. No. David and Saul, let me see. Nope. That's all you have? Hey, if you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just go back to the other page. Go back to the other page. We'll bring it up later. I don't want to take too much time.
Samuel is the true founder of the order of the prophets.
Jump down to where it says, in his time, first appeared.
In his time first appear the companies of the sons of the prophets. From his time, the succession continues. In every generation, unbroken down to Malachi.
So, from Samuel's time, the succession of the prophets, of being the sons of the prophets, it continued in every generation up until Malachi. Every generation.
That's in that we had our own school.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
Yes, we did. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
He, like Moses, appears not alone, but as the center of a circle of prophets. Damn. But unlike Moses,
hey, just like with the leadership, with the bishop gathered a circle of prophets around him. Go ahead.
But unlike Moses, of a circle, some of whom
you got the major prophet, then you got the minor, the sons of the prophets of the major prophet. Go ahead.
Of a circle, some of whom were as highly endowed with prophetic gifts as he himself.
So you got like you was bringing out off Sabbathon, you had some of the prophets, the sons of the prophets in 1 Corinthians when Paul said those have different gifts,
right,
differing one from another. Some are teachers, some are
healers,
helper, even a helper.
Yep.
That's
some evangelists,
some
governments. Okay, different gifts, endowed with different gifts. Go ahead.
Without dwelling on the doubtful case of his father Elkanah and his mother Hannah, there was certainly Gad, Nathan, David, Saul.
So this page lets you know that Saul was there. Go ahead.
And Heman, Samuel's grandson.
Hey, I'm sorry. Did not when somebody said, "Yo, is Saul among the prophets?"
Yep. Yes,
yep.
I was going to get.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. I'm not. I didn't have it down. But I'm saying if you want to bring it, I didn't have that scripture down. But that's when it says Saul among the prophets. But Saul was a couple generations before David, though.
David, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
There was certainly Gad, Nathan, David, Saul, and Heman, Samuel's grandson, amongst those who, if they were not actually educated by him, all marked the epoch of his appearance. Amongst these, Samuel, Gad, and Heman, as if still belonging in a measure to the older state of things, are called seers, whereas Nathan and David bear, without variation, the new name of prophet.
New name of prophet. All right. And King David, he was a prophet himself.
Right.
He was a prophet himself. From there, give me the next page. Let's go to Elijah. Let's deal with Elijah real quick.
Right. And David was familiar with Samuel and his grandson too, because when he was fleeing from Saul, he ran and fled to Samuel to get cover at one point.
He ran to the school.
Yeah.
He ran to the school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's when he had the showbread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Give me yeah. Let me see.
Here's volume 1.
Yep. Read that.
Such an individual arose during this crisis in the person of the prophet Elijah, 920 to 900. Whence came this energetic, all-subduing prophet, in which tribe was his cradle.
So Elijah taught with energy. He had energy. He's energetic when he taught. Go ahead.
Who was his father? This is not known. He was simply known as Elijah, shortened unto Elijah. He was not a citizen of Transjordanic Gilead, but belonged to that class of tolerated half-citizens called Toshebim, or dwellers.
Read.
He was of a tempestuous nature. He was guided by no considerations of expediency.
Yo, he didn't give a damn. He didn't give a damn. He was one of those
Fearless.
Fearless. He was fearless. Go ahead.
He would not have hesitated.
It's going to explain. Go ahead.
He would not have hesitated to offer his life for his creed.
You see that? He didn't hesitate to offer his life for the Most High. Go ahead.
He was considered by his successors as the incarnation of moral and religious zeal. Kinda. Like a tempest, he made his entry. Like a tempest, he thundered forth his execrations against the weak. Woman-led Ahab. Like a tempest, he rushed away so that no one could seize him. And in a tempest, he finally disappeared from his earthly scene of action. Elijah was imbued with the one thought, to save the belief in the God of Israel.
That's it. That's all he cared about, man. He was all about upholding God's laws. That's it. That's it. Go ahead.
Which was passing away from the minds of the people. To this God, he dedicated himself.
To also uplifting the people.
Right. And uplifting the people. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
And to his service did his life belong solely and exclusively. Elijah was outwardly distinguishable by his peculiar dress, in contradistinction to the effeminate, luxurious dress of the worshipers of Baal.
Damn.
And Astarte.
Hey, hold on. Once you got something? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you can't pass by right there.
Listen.
That's you off to the clock.
That's you, man. What you talking about?
Read that again. Read it again.
In contradistinction to the Elijah was outwardly distinguishable by his peculiar dress, in contradistinction to the effeminate, luxurious dress of the worshipers of Baal.
Now, we want to deal with the effeminate, luxurious dress of the worshipers of the devil.
And Astarte, it says.
And Astarte.
No, but you got to look at the effeminate part.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. The effeminate. This is how young men is dressed. This is how people are dressing today. Very effeminate.
And that happened during the time of Elijah.
Same thing. History repeats itself.
Hey, look what it says. He said he wore a leather belt. Brothers don't be wearing belts today. Their pants be
No,
falling.
the belts is at their knee.
Yo, they don't use the belt correctly.
The belts is at their knee. But what we want to focus on, like Officer LaQuat was bringing out, is the effeminate, luxurious dress. Because the way our people dress today, they think that's style. They think that's the trend.
Right.
No, that's effeminate dressing,
So that
man.
means you're worshiping Baal.
They worshiping the devil, man.
Damn.
And Astarte.
And Astarte. But Elijah was outwardly distinguishable by his peculiar dress. He had on something bad, a nice garment.
Yeah.
Said he had a hairy cloak, right?
Right, yeah.
And he had the belt.
The belt, that
With
means
the
he had
belt.
pants on.
A girdle.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I talk about a girdle.
The girdle.
That's
The
belt.
belt.
Yeah.
Go ahead. A leather girdle. Go ahead.
His undergarment was confined by a leather belt, and over it he wore a black hairy cloak. He wore his hair long,
Froed up, braided up. Go ahead.
and touched no wine, and thus gave rise to the institution of Nazarites, who were not permitted to drink wine or to shave the hair of the head.
Read on. Here we go. Watch this.
In this costume and with these habits, he appeared first in Gilead, and there announced the all-embracing creed, Jehovah alone is God. Here, where the Jordan offered a barrier against the swarms of the priests of Baal, and where the fear of Ahab and Jezebel cannot paralyze the conscience, there were yet faithful adherents of the God of Israel.
So they were yet faithful adherents to the God of Israel. There was a remnant of us who was adherents to the God of Israel that wanted to keep God's laws. Go ahead.
Amongst these, Elijah probably found his first auditors and disciples.
So amongst the adherents of the God of Israel, it said Elijah probably found his first auditors, meaning listeners, audience, and disciples.
You read that in Luke.
Yes.
Christ had the 12
Correct.
disciples.
So what we're doing is going back to show you that even before Christ, there was always a major prophet, and he always had disciples around him. Likewise today.
The next generation of the prophets. You
Next
had the main
generation.
prophet with his disciples. Once that main prophet passed, you had his
Right.
students,
Yep.
which came up.
Yep. Go ahead.
who were carried away by his enthusiastic manner and became his helpers.
So they were carried away by the way he taught. He taught with rapturous tempest energy. All right? So they were carried away by that. They never heard nobody speak like that because they were so used to that effeminate, that luxurious dress and so forth. They were used to Ahab, weak behind. So now there was a man that came forth and spoke on all of that nonsense that was going on. Go ahead.
In a short time, a body of prophets or disciples, Bene Nebiim, had arisen, who were ready to give up their lives for their ancestral tenets.
Read it again.
In a short time, a body of prophets.
In a short time. In a short time. Read.
A body of prophets or disciples had arisen, who were ready to give up their lives for their ancestral tenets.
So who were ready to give up their lives for God's laws.
Not their lives unto death.
There you
Those
go.
are the ones God had in store.
Yep.
That would not bow down to Baal.
They were reserved.
But
Every
they were
generation.
waiting for a leader to come up.
That was him. Yep, that was him. Read on.
They also followed Elijah's way of living and became Nazarites. The principles of this newly formed circle were to lead a simple life, not to dwell in cities where luxury and effeminacy ruled, but in village tents, not to drink wine.
You got effeminacy and luxury ruling in every city today. Okay, you look at New York. You look here in Philly. Chicago.
All cities are
all
liberal.
cities, pretty much.
They're all liberal.
All
and
liberal
the scripture
with
says
effeminacy.
that the liberal shall not be called liberal anymore. The vile shall not be called liberal anymore.
So basically, you're saying that if so the pastors today that live in luxury life are not the disciple of Christ.
No.
It says it like that, right?
Right. Read it again. Read it.
They also followed Elijah's way of living and became Nazarites. The principles of this newly formed circle were to lead a simple life.
Simple life. Go ahead.
Not to dwell in cities where luxury and effeminacy ruled, but in village tents, not to drink.
So the prophet was just simple.
Yep.
Right.
Simple life.
They just focus on the scriptures.
Focus on the scriptures. Because it was so much effeminacy and so forth going on at that time. Just like today, you got to separate yourself, man.
Because the lust of the
the lust
of the
right.
world. Yep.
the lust of the flesh.
Go ahead.
Not to drink wine, not to till vineyards, to avoid agriculture generally, but like the patriarchs and the tribes in earlier times, to live by tending flocks. Jonadab, the son of Rechab.
Go down. Let me see. Go down. Read in this.
In this way, Elijah not only aroused and inspired a band of defenders of the ancient law for his own time.
You see what they called the prophets at that time? A band of defenders of the ancient law. Read.
For his own time, but opened the path to a new future. He set simplicity and self-restraint against degeneracy and love of pleasure.
And love of pleasure. Go ahead.
With his body of disciples, he eagerly commenced action against the priests and prophets of Baal. He probably passed rapidly from place to place.
Go ahead.
Called the populace together.
Because he was teaching. They were teaching from place to place with his disciples. Yo, go here. You go teach over there. They was moving.
Just like Christ.
Just like Christ was. Christ had nowhere to sleep. But he said, foxes have holes, but I have nowhere to lay my head. Just like today. The leadership moving from place to place, man. Yep. Read.
And inspired them with his storm-like eloquence.
What? Dang, I'm getting tongue-tied. With a what?
With his storm-like eloquence.
Uh-huh.
The point of which was Jehovah alone is God.
Boom.
And Baal and Astarte are dumb, lifeless idols.
Read on. That's all I want from that. That's all I want from there.
Just like the statue of Caligula.
Right.
Yep.
Dumb, lifeless idol. Give me now, 1 second. Get page 201. Page 201. That was page 199 and 200, right? Yes, sir. Get page 201 real quick. Oh, that was page 201. Get 208. Page 208. Read that.
The greatest marvel, however, which Elijah accomplished, consisted in founding a circle of disciples who succeeded in keeping alive the teachings of the ancient law, and who raised their voices against the perversions of the mighty ones of the land.
They did what? What they do?
Who raised their voices against the perversions of the mighty ones of the land.
How was they raising their voices? Teaching. They was on the streets teaching. Crying aloud. Sparing nobody feelings. Go ahead.
The members of the prophetic school founded by the prophet lived by the work of their own hands. After Elijah's disappearance, the disciples, being without a leader, Elisha placed himself at their head. In the beginning of his career, he followed closely in the footsteps of his master, keeping aloof from all men and living chiefly on Mount Carmel.
So Elisha was the type to just, he was like a recluse. He liked to live remote. He ain't like to be around too many men. Go ahead.
Gradually, however, he accustomed himself to mix with the people, especially.
So he started to mix with the people. Go ahead.
Especially after he had succeeded in rousing an energetic man to destroy the house of Omri and put an end to the worship of Baal.
All right, from there, it was 328. Let's do Isaiah real quick. Isaiah, give me the prophet Isaiah real quick. Let me see. Page 283 and 284, Isaiah.
Still History of the Jews, Volume 1, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Happily, there existed in Jerusalem a strong party who respected the law, so despised and scoffed at the court faction. These formed a striking contrast to the representatives of idolatry and were determined to seal their convictions.
Hold on. It said these formed a striking contrast to the representatives of idolatry. You know those representatives of idolatry? Those false prophets.
The feminine.
The effeminate. They were the representatives of idolatry. All right, go ahead.
And were determined to seal their convictions, even with their blood.
Read.
These disciples of the Lord, whom Isaiah had taught.
Read that again.
These disciples of the Lord, whom Isaiah had taught and educated as his own children.
Read.
Were the long-suffering Anavim, small in numbers and low in rank, whose determination, however, rendered them a strong power. They may be called the Anavites or prophetic party.
So what we're showing you is Isaiah, a major prophet, had disciples under him. Read.
They called themselves the community of the upright. This community was subjected to many hard trials through the change under Manasseh. The least of their troubles was that the men whom Hezekiah had placed as judges and officers of state were turned out of their positions by the court party, and that Aaronites of the family of Zadok, the high priest who refused to take part in the idolatrous worship, were dismissed from the temple and deprived of their incomes from sacrifices and gifts. Prophets raised their voices in denunciation of these crimes.
Prophets did what?
Raised their voices in denunciation of these crimes.
Read.
And other members of this community manifested their horror at the daring of the court party. But Manasseh and the princes of Judah did not stop short of any crime, and, like the abhorred Jezebel, drowned the voices of the prophets in blood. The prophetic utterances of this period have not been preserved. The zealous men of God had no time to write them down.
Why?
A violent death overtook them before they could seize the pencil, or they were obliged to hide their thoughts in veiled language.
So they started putting us to death. All right, they started putting us to death. All right, so listen, I'm going to stop it there. I got more, so stay tuned next week. We're going to go more. I got more on the sons of the prophets, and then we're going to start to get back into the disciples and how they were moving. All right?
Everyone's going to show a little...
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You have a better one? What's the other ones? You have any?
From the ones... You want the one I sent you before?
No, like, we want one with...
The shirt.
A few of them.
Okay.
Like in the beginning.
Beginning
stage. Anything?
Let me just... It take me a second to find it. 1 second.
All right, who's doing the announcement?
I am. Unless you want... You want to do the announcements real quick?
Somebody look
want to read? Go
somebody
ahead.
read. Go ahead. Come on, man.
I'm waiting for the...
Waiting for what?
The announcement. He doing announcement while you look for the...
All right, so let's give another hand for the excellent class that just came out. All praise to the Most High. All right, so listen up. Subscribe to our Hidden History Radio on YouTube, all right? Subscribe to IUIC Philadelphia or IUIC Philadelphia in the Classroom, okay? Donate on PayPal to OHH at IUIC.Philadelphia@IsraelUnite.org. And don't forget to donate to the Booster Club at fundraising@IsraelUnite.org. And last but not least, subscribe to IUIC TV, all right, to get exclusive content from the leadership of IUIC. We got the Joseph's Dream out. You know, we got the new movie coming out soon, all right? And don't forget to tune into Deacon Malafaya's Raven and Wolves coming up at 4 p.m. today. Don't want to miss that.
Nothing?
I just sent the video.
To me or to them?
Oh, yeah, to you, my fault.
Oh, man, come on, bro. We wanted to show you how to...
Also, the land fund. The land fund.
Oh, yeah, last but not least, don't forget to donate to the land fund, all right? The land fund. We want to enjoy ourselves for our feast days on our own land, on our own property. So don't forget to donate, all right? See the vision.
Let me see what I got.
That's the video.
It's called The Prophets. Come on.
Shit, we got a couple of young prophets going to men's conference, too.
Men's
Right.
conference.
Yep.
All praises.
There was some that were at Passover,
Passover.
doing IT work.
Yeah, we had a couple of that was at the March.
Yep.
Juneteenth March.
Yep. Doing the same thing all over again.
All praises.
So
So we got a video for you real quick
of the young prophet.
of the young prophets in training.
Yeah, I hope that's a good video, bro.
That's the one
Been
that...
on this road too long. I'm making my way back home. I was young, did a lot of things wrong. I'm making my way back home. When I pull up, lit, flex, make 'em sick. Rocks, drip. So my lady we get. Kill 'em. So my lady we get. Kill 'em. So my lady we get. Straight to the top from the dust of the ground. Shout out my God.
Look at that. Oh, look at that. Look at that. These young men got official young prophet shirts now.
When I blink from afar, TVS diamonds, it's stars on my floor. Gold on my pavement, don't rock that on rock. Sitting on the throne with the boss. Heat up the score and we ready to fly. Stepping down, got him holding it good. I'm holding it again.
All praise.
Sons of the prophets.
All right, all praise, all praise. So with that, we're going to say shalom. Hey, I want to give a shout out to the breakfast, the sisters that made the breakfast, all praises. We always want to thank those sisters for the work they put in with the food. IT, y'all going to get better, all right? Nah, but all praise for IT, man.
Well,
All
we got
praise.
no beasts to feed you, too.
Go pray and fast for yesterday class.
Hey, with that, stay tuned. Like I said, stay tuned next week. We're going to get more into the sons of the prophets, and also we going into the rise in the ministry of the disciples, all right? And with that, we say shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.